ancestral territory. Is the ants?
Oops, can everyone hear?
Looks like Lori dropped off.
Oh, there we are. Now I can hear you. Lori, are you there? Okay. Cheryl, can you hear?
Yes, I can hear. I think Lori got kicked out. There was a message that popped up on the screen.
Yeah, okay. I'll text and we'll get her to rejoin. And we'll go from there and we'll just have her reread. Okay, you got kicked off. Please rejoin. Okay. There. All right, we'll just wait a sec for oh, she may be coming back right now.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I just heard on my thing that this is being recorded. Do you know that? Because I keep hearing that says recording in progress. Are we recording this?
Yeah, that's what I got too, Myra, and then I got booted out.
Yeah.
Oh.
Chief.
So then. Good afternoon, everyone. Good to see you. Yeah, standard practice that we make a recording. So I think Teresa just pushed the record button a little bit later than usual. So our apologies, but this is standard practice.
Okay, when that button was pushed, that's when I got booted out. So I apologize. I guess I was saying the territorial acknowledgement to myself only.
Omar has a comment to make here. Go ahead, Omar. Are you the one pushing recording?
I just did, but I'm saying we only record the public bits of the meeting.
Yeah. So this part until we go into private.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Trustee Ivanelli, I'll ask you to reread.
The territorial acknowledgement.
We missed almost all of it.
Okay, here we go. Hang on one second. Let me pull it up again. So many buttons open here. The Creator gifted us with this land that we are blessed to share and care for together. The Calgary Catholic School District acknowledges that the land we gather on, Mohkinstsis, is the ancestral territory of the Siksikapi, the Siksika, Guyana, Piikani, and Amskapi Piikani. We acknowledge all the Treaty 7 signatories, including the Tsuut'ina people, as well as the Ayehar, Nakota nations, Bearspaw, Chiniki, and Wesley. This land is also the home of Métis Nation Region 3 and all others who call this place home.
Thank you very much, Trustee Ivanelli. There were no requests to amend the agenda or add anything or pull anything off consent. So we just need a straightforward approval of the agenda.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I move that the Board of Trustees approves the agenda as presented.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thanks. Perfect. And if I could have another motion.
I move that the Board of Trustees moves to meet in private.
Perfect. Thank you. All those in favor? Okay. Yeah, we've definitely got quorum. So with that, I will ask our trustee Ivanelli to open our public meeting with a prayer and a land acknowledgement. Trustee Ivanelli.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. As a people alive in spirit, we gather. Today we celebrate the memorial of Saint Philip Neri, a priest of the 16th century who believed that humor and cheerfulness encouraged the faith and a patron of home missions. Let us listen to these words from the Gospel of Mark. James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came forward to him and said to him, "Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask of you." And he said to them, "What is it you want me to do for you?" And they said to him, "Grant us to sit, one at your right hand and one at your left, in your glory." But Jesus said to them, "You do not know what you are asking. Are you able to drink the cup that I drank, or be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with?" They replied, "We are able." Then Jesus said to them, "The cup that you will drink, and the baptism with which I am baptized, you will be baptized. But I sit at the right hand or at my left is not mine to grant, but it is for those for whom it has been prepared." Please join in our gathering prayer. Lord God, you never cease to raise up your faithful to the glory of holiness. Continue to kindle in us the fire of the Holy Spirit that filled the heart of Philip Neri, that we may always give ourselves cheerfully for the glory of your name. Bless all missionaries who preach and teach the good news, especially those who work in the mission communities across Canada. Renew their spirits and grant them strength that they may be witness of your love and reflections of your mercy and joy each day. Open the hearts and minds of families and students who are served through the generosity of missionaries and faithful catechists. May they discover the treasure of our Catholic faith and be strengthened by the power of the sacraments. Sustain staff and students in the final weeks of teaching and learning. Help them to grow in faith, hope, and love, that they may walk in the way of Christ and be more closely unified to you and to one another. Through Christ our Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you for that. And to the land acknowledgement.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. The Creator gifted us with this land that we are blessed to share and care for together. The Calgary Catholic School District acknowledges the land we gather on. Mohkinstsis is the ancestral territory of the Siksika-Sitapi, the Siksika, Guyana, Piikani, and Amskapi-Piikani. We acknowledge all the Treaty 7 signatories, including the Tsuut'ina people, as well as the Earhei, Nakota Nations, Bearspaw, Chiniki, and Wesley. This land is also the home of Métis Nation Region 3 and all others who call this place home.
Thank you, Trustee Ivanelli. And with that, we have no presentation, review, and accountability report. So we'll proceed on to board decision items, item 7. And that will get us to 7.1, approval of the district operating budget with submission to Alberta Ed. And I will turn it to our Chief Superintendent, Dr. Zumlas.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon, everyone. The first item on our agenda today is our budget, and I want to begin by thanking Superintendent Naren Kishan-Shindani and his team. And I see we do have Chris and Vanessa with us this afternoon, and a huge thank you to both of them. And I'm so proud of the work that this team does. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Kishan-Shindani, who's going to walk us through the proposed budget for your approval today.
Thank you, Dr. Zumlas, and thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, with your permission, I would like to share my screen to provide the presentation slides for so it's visible to all participants at the meeting. Madam Chair, you should be able to see the slides.
We certainly can. Now I can no longer see the hands that are up, which is fine. I will ask trustees to politely interject if there's a question, if that works for you. Superintendent Kishan-Shindani, great.
That sounds great, thank you. So Madam Chair, I'm pleased to speak to the district's 2021-2022 budget for consideration for approval by the board. The detailed budget documents were separately provided to the board for review. I now plan to speak to the significant highlights of the budget with reference to the slide deck I have up on the screen. Slide 2 here shows a comparison of the revenue and spend levels in 2021-22 budget relative to those within the prior year budget. A critical difference is that while the budget, the prior year budget reflected an operating deficit of $4.9 million, the new budget now reflects a larger operating deficit of $10.4 million. Madam Chair, as the board is well aware, budgeting an operating deficit on an ongoing basis is not a sustainable solution, and having a higher operating deficit is that much more undesirable. As reflected on slide 3, the district is budgeting an operating deficit, which is $5.5 million higher, despite the fact that provincial funding was retained at the prior year levels. I will be speaking to the primary reasons for this higher deficit on the next slide. Here, though, I wanted to highlight the fact that the proposed operating deficit of $10.4 million was finalized after a bunch of careful review and realignment of various operational aspects of the district to generate cost reductions while retaining resources in our classrooms. Absent such cost reductions, Madam Chair, the operating deficit would have stood at $18 million. Subject to the board's approval, after considering the impact of capital transactions, this budget will require a drawdown of $8 million from the district reserves, which will further be subject to formal approval by the Minister of Education. Slide 4 identifies the rationale for a larger deficit, despite the fact that the provincial funding was retained at the prior year levels. While the budget assumes a substantial return to near normal operations in the context of COVID-19, there will be select cost pressures that will continue to linger within the budget year. Further, this budget assumes there will be no new federal funding forthcoming to accommodate such COVID-19 related cost pressures. A higher level of staffing contingency has been budgeted to cater to potential resourcing needs in the event that actual enrollments in September 2021 are in excess of levels budgeted. A variety of inflationary pressures will also be a factor, no different than any other year. Costs of insurance have been on the rise due to a variety of global events, which have been further fueled by the impacts of the pandemic. The cost increases the district is facing is largely aligned with what industry is facing across the spectrum. Costs of special education classes and supports are on the rise due to the evolving needs of these students. While all of the above items were factors triggering higher costs, these are coupled with a corresponding reduction in the magnitude of revenues or inflows that the district would otherwise expect for items such as donations, rentals, and interest income. The combined effect of the above items is a larger deficit since these significantly exceed the cost-saving measures that were implemented. Slide 5 shows the level of reserves that the district is budgeting. The projected drawdown of $8 million, subject to ministerial approval, will leave a budgeted residual $13 million in discretionary reserves as of August 31, 2022. That represents 2.1% of the annual spend and is considered reasonable for the size and scale of the district's operations. Madam Chair, it is important to note that the 13 million in reserves does not include reserves that are restricted, worth about $4.6 million, which is represented by school-generated funds. In effect, total reserves would stand at 17.6 million or 2.9% of annual spend. Slide 6, which is my last slide, Madam Chair, is intended to list out a variety of risks associated with the budget and the means through which such risks would be mitigated in the event any combination of these risks were to crystallize. I plan to go through only a couple of these risks to illustrate the approach. A key operational variable is the student enrollment count. Should the actual number of students in schools be more than the projected count used for the budget, staffing contingency would be deployed to cater to the additional teaching resources needed. In the event of a large and unusual surge in count, though, the district may need to consider drawing further monies from the reserves subject to board and ministerial approval. On the third row, I talk about the adequacy of reserves to meet most unanticipated or unforeseen occurrences. But it is important to note that the reserves may not cater to the impact of any serious catastrophic events. However, the district's centralized structure enhances its ability to be responsive to such events in a timely manner, thus helping diminish the magnitude of impact that could potentially result. With that, Madam Chair, I will turn it back to you for any questions that you or the board may have with regards to the budget that has been put forward for the board's consideration for approval. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And I can see some people, but not all of them, I have trustee D'Souza. Oh, thank you. Trustee D'Souza, trustee Williams. You're muted, trustee D'Souza.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One of the risks that Superintendent Kushan Chandani mentioned was the drop in student numbers that's affecting. I was just curious to know, I know it's still very recent, the closure of 2 of our schools. Have we had any, do we have any idea of how many students will be actually coming back or going to other schools? Because that will bring a further drawdown on numbers and could go, into the millions as well. Any idea about that? Or if not, when would we know that?
The chief.
At this point in time, it's still early parents are still making decisions, and with the uncertainty around COVID-19, it's still way early to tell. And we may never know the actuals. Like we're going to have a pretty good idea from the schools that have been designated to receive the students. But we also know in some cases that multiple schools, the students could attend multiple schools. So it's not just going to one school. But we'll come back with some further information to the board at a future date, and most likely probably in September.
Trustee Williams.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So with the new funding formula, going from what we had last time, our numbers had to be in on September 30th and a correction would be made later, depending on where our numbers stood. So with the new funding formula, just so I can understand this, should we be under or over? Would a correction be made later in the year for revenue that we would receive?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll take this one, Naren. So just like this year, it's all based upon 50% of our funding is based upon our projected number for next year. So that's why our Brad and the planning department with Nishka as our lead works really hard to come up with a number, because that number is what the funding is based upon. And just like this year, our projected number went in prior to COVID-19. And so that number was higher than our actuals. And the Ministry of Education said that, well, pull that money aside because we could pull it back. But at the end of the day, they made a decision to let school jurisdictions keep that money, right? And so as we look forward into next year, there's no guarantee, like we're still living in a world of COVID-19. So we're going to have to wait and see how well we do in relation to that projection. Hopefully we're coming in fairly close. But we don't know what the government's going to do if we aren't close, if they're going to pull money back, or if they would increase funding to help us out. All of that is unknown territory, because this is only year 2 of the new funding framework as well.
Thank you.
Trustee Ivanelli and then trustee Wellman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Given the information on, oh dear, I lost my question. On donations and rentals, with a return to near normal in-person classes, does the district foresee an increase in donations and rentals? And would there be a cutoff date as to when those would be determined that would impact the budget?
Thank you, Madam Chair. At this point in time, it's still too early to decide when our rentals are going to resume or not. I understand the Premier gave a message today about the reopening of Alberta. So administration, we haven't had a chance to sit down and digest and interpret all of that, but we're anticipating that when Alberta opens up and we return to the time where we can rent our facilities and accept more donations and more fundraising that's happening in schools, that we will have more revenue come to the district in those areas for sure.
Trustee Wellman, I know you've got a question, and I'm remiss. We should have started with a motion. So let me ask you to start with the motion, and then you can ask your question. How's that?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, I think in all fairness, based on the question I'm going to ask, I think I'm going to ask that question first, Madam Chair, with your permission before I move the motion. And that is in relation to the ministerial order that just came out, saying that budgets can be extended until June the 18th before they need to be submitted. Now, I know traditionally that our staffing process is probably already started. We always like to have our budget completed by the end of May because it helps facilitate our planning for the next year. But with that being said, I was just wondering if administration felt that perhaps there might be some wisdom to delaying approval until the 18th, given the uncertainties with what is going on with COVID.
Chief?
Thank you, Trustee Wellman. Administration did have a conversation as to should we delay and submit with the new extended timeline or stay true to the original date. We are moving through our staffing process at this time, but we don't see any advantage or disadvantage to delaying it until this later date, because for us, September is going to be the time for staffing that's going to be the biggest, to give us the clearest picture of what staffing is going to look like in Calgary Catholic, as to how many students, who knows where we're going to be with COVID at that period in time, how many kindergarten kids are now going to come to grade 1, and all of that will be worked out in September. One thing I can say is I'm really proud of our staffing committee and all the work that they're doing. And I know it's been tough for our teachers. Every year we have teachers that are priority placed or surplus from a school, and because we are a centrally managed school jurisdiction, is they can apply for jobs and then we assign them to schools if they are not successful at being hired at a school. Right now, we're monitoring the numbers of jobs and the number of people very closely, but we do have procedures in place because it could be a realistic possibility that for the first time in Calgary Catholic's many-year history, that we don't have enough jobs for all of the teachers that have been priority placed. And so we'll know more about that in September, but it's quite possible that there may be some teacher layoffs in September. We're not anticipating, a huge number, but just a heads up to everyone that is a realistic possibility come September. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So Madam Chair, with that, I would move that the Board of Trustees approves the 2021-2022 district operating budget and the 2021-2022 budget report for release to the district's website and for distribution to any interested stakeholders as deemed appropriate.
That, and you got the got the question on the floor. Thank you. Now I'm losing my voice. Trustee D'Souza.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's just a question that popped up as Chief Superintendent was making his comments. I have a question for him, Madam Chair. Should we have to, because of our budget constraints, not be able to rehire most of our teachers, would they get preferential treatment as sub-teachers over and above the ones who we currently have? Would they get a preference when we need substitute teachers?
To the Chief.
Thank you, Trustee D'Souza. So we do have new administrative procedures because this has never been an administrative procedure before. So a huge thank you goes out to Superintendent Holoka, who is part of our meeting today, who has now put this, who's done a lot of legwork to create this as an AP. And not only with Superintendent Holoka, so much conversation has happened with our legal counsel, other superintendents, and conversation around this matter. And so, we want to try our best to get jobs for the people of Calgary Catholic. At the end of the day, when a person is laid off, just like other teacher unions, when we lay off in Unifor, for example, people go on a layoff recall list, and when jobs come available, we give them first opportunity for reemployment. And I do believe, and Superintendent Holoka can chime in here, I do believe we have similar processes in place for teachers. But over to you, Superintendent Holoka.
Thank you, Dr. Zumas, and through you to the Chief. Yes, they would have the opportunity to guest teach with us, provided that they do not have a letter of discipline that is current with us. within the last 5 years. So if they're in good standing, as we say, with the district, then they could certainly come forward and be part of our guest teacher roster, which is the majority of our employees. And we believe that most will take us up on that. And that will certainly help with not only having a very strong guest teacher roster, but also, as we know, there's many leaves that emerge during the year, maternity leaves and so on. And those temporary positions can then also be filled by these folks who are on our guest teacher roster.
Going to ask if there are any further questions, clarification, or more detail is being sought by trustees. I see Trustee Lowe.
Yes, thank you. Just one question, and it's in regards to the reserve. So once we, the board, if we're to approve this, this will be filed with the Alberta Education, and then with that goes and asked to the minister to approve the usage of our reserves. I was just wondering if you could share a little bit more if there, in the scenario where we did not get those reserves fully approved, the usage, what would be our mitigation to ensure we have a balanced budget? Because we have spent a lot of time, really over the last 6 months, pretty much looking at this budget and all of these pieces, and the board has approved many decisions to cut, cost curtailment, which you see in the report. And now we're at the point where we need to utilize those reserves. So I'm just wondering what the mitigation would be and what the go forward was. I'm not anticipating the minister won't approve it, but if that were to occur, what would be the approach?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So administration, right from the get-go, we looked at 2% rollbacks, 4% rollbacks, and 6% rollbacks. And we had, different scenarios for each one. Luckily, we were able to go with a 2% scenario rollback, as well as many of the other things that we did throughout the district, such as closing schools, to try to reel in some of our spending and have realignment. And so we've also been working closely with the Ministry of Education and Finance, and we're quite confident that we will get approval. But in the event that we don't get approval, we're going to have to go back to the drawing board on things such as class size, because a huge amount of our expense is spent on people and teachers. And so we would have to adjust class sizes, redo some staffing, as well as looking at other possible reductions throughout the entire jurisdiction. So maybe go from a 2% scenario to a 4%, which means cutbacks in everything. And so we're crossing our fingers and very hopeful that we will get this approval. But in the event that we don't, we do have backup plans that we can activate to move forward.
Trustee Ivanelli.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just as a follow-up with the ministerial approval, I mean, the district or board of trustees, as Trustee Lowe mentioned, reviewed many and looked at all different ways of cost savings this year, in particular transportation. And I'm glad that they were outlined in the actual budget, because it's not like this was an easy budget this year to pass, given all the cuts we'd already had to make. Is there any indication that the minister would not approve the use of reserves?
To the chief.
At this point, there has been no indication that she would not approve our ask to use reserves.
Trustee Ballman.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, before you call the question, I just wanted an opportunity to speak to the motion that I put on the floor for the board's consideration.
If I can, if you just before you go there, that would effectively close any further conversation typically. So I'm going to ensure that everyone has their questions on the table. All right.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think it's been alluded to that the fact that the budget is indeed a process and not an event. We actually started the budget planning process earlier than normal. We usually start in January, and I believe this year we started last November. And we've done extensive consultation. We've tried to utilize the feedback to the fullest extent possible that we receive from parents and staff alike and stakeholders. And I think the fact that we only have an $8 million drawdown on our reserves is outstanding. We see the gap, and it continues to grow between revenue and expenses. Our revenue seems to go down. Our expenses continually go up because a lot of them are uncontrollable expenses. And the fact that we are still going to have 2.1% sitting in our reserves, I think the minister would look at that as being, as healthy. I mean, it's certainly within the recommended guidelines of what a district our size should have. But I think what's more important, not just the fact that we're balancing our budget, but we're also, to the fullest extent possible, we have preserved services to our classrooms. And I think that is first and foremost. We have kept that student focus. So I certainly support this budget and certainly thank administration for a lot of the work that they have done and keeping the board very well informed and allow us to make the decisions very slowly, if you will, going through this process. It is a lean budget, but it's not a mean budget given the amount of money that we have lost over the last number of years when it comes to funding. Thank you, Madam
Before
Chair.
I call the question, I again would like to express my appreciation to our administrative team, to our chief, to Superintendent Kishishandani. This year has been, I think, a particularly difficult and a very challenging one because of elements that have occurred beyond our control, COVID being one of them, where Alberta finds itself economically is another challenge. I would like to express appreciation in particular for the transparent and consultative processes that were used, thought exchange in particular, and true to form, administration has responded to parental and community input that asked for classroom protections, to reevaluate our capital, to look at maintenance and sustainability of underutilized programs of choice, looking at central office reconfigurations. The responsiveness to all of this feedback is noteworthy, and it's something I think as Calgary Catholic we do particularly well. We do find ourselves in challenging times. We do know that we have increasingly fragile populations, kids that need support. We need to keep our teachers in front of the classroom, and it's our hope, it's my hope that despite the challenges within this budget, that we have done that to the greatest extent possible. The board will certainly continue to advocate to maintain our staff and our supports. We're all in it for what's best for kids, and I myself will also be supporting this budget. There are no further hands out. Closing comments regarding this have been made. So now I will call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous. And again, on behalf of the board, our deepest thanks for serving our students so well in such an unforeseen time. Could have never imagined we'd be here, and you've done a beautiful job in protecting our kids. Through the chief.
Go ahead, Naren.
Thank you, Dr. Zoomlis. Madam Chair, thank you. Really appreciate those kind words, and thank you to the team who has really stood front and center in getting this done. Madam Chair, just wanted to alert the board, there is a second resolution on the budget
That's right. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm prepared to put that on the floor. Madam Chair, I move that the Board of Trustees approves the 2021-22 budget report for filing with Alberta Education after the required signatures of the board chair, the chief superintendent, and the secretary treasurer are affixed on it. And in speaking to that, Madam Chair, well, we have a beautiful budget booklet that has been prepared, and it's easy to read, and the graphic design is very beautiful. The Department of Education does require the budget in a format that they desire, and so that motion is to support that report going to the Department of Education as required.
Are there any questions regarding this motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you. And once again passed. Thank you again for that. That'll get us to item 7.3, new locally developed, or sorry, I skipped one, 7.2, approval of the 3-year ed plan. Sorry, getting ahead of myself here. And if we could start with the motion, Trustee Ivanelli.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that the Board of Trustees approves the 21-2024 education plan.
Thank you for that. And with the motion on the floor, I'll turn to our Chief Superintendent to introduce this.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is the second time that we've brought forward to the board our 3-year education plan. I want to say a huge thank you to Superintendent Andrea Holoka, who leads up this initiative and working collaboratively with the other superintendents. This report focuses on the 4 board priorities, and you can now see it in its formatted form. And so huge thank you also goes out to Document Services and all the work that has been done by Director Tanya Von Brunt and her team. And Superintendent Holoka is joining us now if there's any questions that the board may have with the report that's in front of you.
Thank you, Trustee Williams.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to say it's a wonderful report. I guess the only question I have now is there will be a short form one that's going to come out so that we can use that for distribution to our stakeholders.
So anything is possible, Madam Chair, and I guess that I would defer is at the will of the board. That is not in the past, we had done that. That was part of, I think, criteria for Alberta education, but it is no longer the criteria. But if it's the will of the board, then we would have no problems in creating something like that.
All right, I will turn to, actually, I'll just go on the table and get a position on that. I do recall in the past, we did have an abbreviated one that certainly had its uses for advocacy purposes and for meeting counterparts around the province. But that's just a wee bit of historical context. Trustee Lowe?
I didn't realize I had my hand up, but actually I will speak.
I'm going around.
I actually recall the short form being part of the annual education results report, not the 3-year education plan document. I don't recall us ever getting a short form of this document before.
I'm sure you're correct.
Yeah, I guess to that point, I'm not sure that this is something you can summarize in a really short form.
Yeah, no, I'm sure you're right. Thank you for that. I'm having a November moment with our, not a worry. Thank you for that. Are there any further questions on this annual report? Trustee Ivanelli?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry, I didn't get my hand up in time. Does admin want a request of copies for this report to share with MLAs at this time?
Typically what we do is we will just, and again, those would typically go through Teresa. I don't know how much of an uptick there has been in terms of a request to have the full document. Again, I was thinking of a different document when I made my previous comment. And I'll turn that to the chief. Is that something that would be reasonable for you? If trustees request additional copies?
You will receive the digital copy, right? I think everyone has a digital copy as part of the portfolio. It is quite a lengthy document. I know in the past we've made COIL versions of it as well, and every trustee received a minimum number of copies. I'm just reflecting upon Trustee Williams' comment and taking into everything that's been shared by Trustee Lowe and others. It is true that we had this a condensed report for advocacy and stuff. And I think there is probably an opportunity here to produce, a 1 or 2 pager that had our board priorities on it, maybe some of our, a couple of highlights from each section. That would be really good for you guys when you're out advocating and talking to MLAs. I think we could produce that for you rather than getting bogged down in an 88-page document, even though it's lean and it's very to the point, but it does have the short, medium, and long term that are requirements from Alberta Ed. So it could be a better, I am thinking in my head that we probably can make something for you as we go forward. Superintendent Holoka, why don't you weigh in here and what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think Trustee Lowe is correct that what we used to provide was a requirement that had to do with the AERR, the reporting requirements. There is no longer a summary report required for either of the reports moving forward, so that would be a separate board request and not a requirement that's coming from the ministry. However, it's very, something we could create and share with the board. We generally did produce some spiral bound copies. I think it is good for you to have to refer to at your fingertips. So I think we were planning to still produce so at least one copy per trustee, each superintendent. And then we usually send one off to some of our stakeholders like Alberta Education, our field managers. And then we had a list of people that we sent them to. Actually, it doesn't need to include MLAs if you don't see that as a useful tool for yourselves. We certainly don't need to give you more than one, but we were prepared to give one per trustee at minimum. If you maybe we'll start there, and if you require more, you can let Teresa know. And in the meantime, we'll work on a summary document for you, and we'll do the same for the ARR in the fall.
Yeah, thank you for that. They are very useful. I know we have a summary document with our capital plan as well that is helpful and allows Calgary Catholic to present itself very well. Trustee Rath, did you have your hand up?
It was asked and answered.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Are there any further requests or questions of clarification on this document before I call the question?
Chair Martin, just Teresa here.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if the board could let me know, by tomorrow or Friday, how many copies, if they want extra copies, just so that when they're producing them, we're not going back and saying, can you produce us some more? So just whip me off an email. Thank you.
All right, you've all heard that. All right, seeing no further questions, then with the motion on the table, I will call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, that motion's carried as well. Thank you very much, and thank you for a terrific job. This is going to get us to item 7.3, locally developed courses. Locally developed, locally acquired, and acquired locally developed courses, and renewal of locally developed and acquired locally developed courses. And Trustee Lowe, if you'd like to lead us off with a motion.
Yes, thank you, Chair Martin. This is required that the board approve the locally developed courses. I would move that the Board of Trustees approves as required by the Minister of Education as follows. New locally developed courses. Audio 2019, 15, 25, 35, 3 and 5 credits. Expanded core curriculum for students with visual impairments, 15, 3, 5 credit, and 25, 3 credit. Math analysis and approaches 2020, 25, 5 credit, 35, 3 credit. Orientation and mobility 2019, 15, 25, 3 credit. Positive psychology 15, 5 credits. Religious education 8, growing in faith, growing in Christ 8, and understanding video games 15, 5 credit. Renewal of locally developed courses. Band 2021, 15, 25, 35, 3 and 5 credit. Chamber ensemble 2021, 15, 25, 35, 5 credit. Choir 2021, 15, 25, 35, 3 and 5 credit. Design Thinking for Innovation 2021, 15, 25, 35, 3 and 5 credit. Film and Media Art 2021, 15, 25, 35, 3 and 5 credit. Film Appreciation 15, 3 credits, 25, 3 and 5 credit. Forensic Studies 2021, 25, 35, 3 credit. Forensic Studies 2021, 35, 5 credit. French Language and Literature 2021, 35, 3 credit. Instrumental Jazz 2021, 15, 25, 35, 3 and 5 credit. Marching Band 15, 25, 35, 3 and 5 credit. Marching Band Visual 15, 25, 35, 5 credit. Musical Theater 15, 25, 35, 3 and 5 credit. Polish Language and Culture 12Y 15, 25, 35, 5 credit. Religions of the World 2021, 35, 3, 5 credits. Studio Arts 2021, 35, 3 credit. Theory of Knowledge 2021, 25, 35, 3 credit. And Vocal Jazz 2021, 15, 25, 35, and 5 credit. And Madam Chair, I would just speak to this motion and appreciating the work that our administration has done in finding these courses to bring this rich diversity of opportunity across a variety of subject areas. Great to see some of the ones for our visual impaired and mobility. I think these are really something quite special that we're offering in our district. So obviously I'm making the motion. I would support the approval of all of these courses.
Thank you for that, Trustee Lowe. I have Trustee Williams and Trustee D'Souza.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would also speak in support of this motion. And I think it speaks to the diversity that we have within our district and respecting a liberal arts approach to education. So I'm speaking in favor of this and happy to see it come forward.
Thank you for that. I have Trustee D'Souza and Trustee Ivanelli.
Madam Chair, I'm really happy to see this. I'd like to thank the administration for putting a great smorgasbord of awesome courses. I just have a couple of questions. I was curious about the understanding of video games being a 5-credit full semester course. I was curious about that. Orientation and mobility, I was curious about that. And then Polish language, I see that, that's awesome. I know that we have a huge Filipino population, and I believe that we also offer Tagalog, is that correct? In our curriculum for the large Filipino population. I was just curious about that. And do we have any courses on environmental sustainability or finances for our students?
To the Chief.
Many questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so Trustee D'Souza, couple of you've raised so many questions here. Tagalog, that was one of the languages that we did offer due to there was very little uptake in it. We did offer it at Father Lacombe High School at one point, and because the class enrollment, like people spoke it as their native tongue, and they just didn't register in the course, and so it's kind of fell by the wayside. So that's one of your questions right there. When we talk about the video course, we're talking about student engagement. And so it's more than just playing video games, but you can see there's a whole course syllabus as well as assessment around that whole area. So any course offered by Calgary Catholic has to be rigorous in nature. Your initial comments about the smorgasbord of courses, we are very grateful for all of our partners in education. You'll see the various like CBE, the Foothill School District, it goes on and on of the different jurisdictions that we've borrowed courses from, as well as we're proud of our own roots here in Calgary Catholic that have created courses such as marching band and French. And so I want to thank Superintendent John McDonald and his team, Director Helmut Kaiser, all of our consultants for their work on these courses that you see before you today. As for some of the specific questions you asked about certain courses here, maybe that's something that Superintendent McDonald and you can talk about offline after the meeting or another time. I would prefer that at this point. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's just a question about the Polish language course. How would this now affect the extracurricular, I guess, Polish language course that's offered outside the district?
To the Chief.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're going to put Superintendent John McDonald on the spot to answer this question. No pressure. Go ahead. You're muted. Superintendent McDonald, you're on mute.
My apologies. I get a kick out of how you do that with a grin and a chuckle all the time to me, but it actually doesn't change the offering that we have. We actually have a letter of understanding with the Polish school to offer that language class. So we work in conjunction because they don't belong to a particular school district. we work with them to develop that language course through a locally developed course, and then help them to get it approved, which is a part of this package. And so working with the principal and Principal Steve Patingla and Director Helmut Kaiser, they work with the principal of the Polish school to make sure that the course is offered and assessed properly.
Now it'll be an accredited course, is that correct?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
So now that it's being offered, it will be an accredited course and those students will get credit for the course that they're taking.
Yes, there is credit assigned for it.
Awesome, thank you.
Trustee D'Souza, is that a new hand? Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions before I call the question? All right, seeing none, again, I would echo Trustee Lowe's thoughts in support of this motion. This is, I think, a big contributor. The diversity of offerings and the intent to engage as many students as possible, I think, is in no small part a very significant part of our success with our high school graduation rates. And I want to express appreciation for the imagination that goes into this, and the breadth of options available is to be applauded. And seeing no further hands, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. And again, that's carried. So thank you again for that. That will move us to item 7.4, Policy 5 Change Considerations, first, second, and final reading. And I will turn to Trustee Rath to open this conversation.
Certainly. Thank you, Chair Martin. I move that the Board of Trustees amends Policy 5, role of the board chair, as follows. Amend bullet point 20 to now read as provide opportunity for all trustees to act in the capacity of chair at select meetings of the board.
Thank you. We have a motion on the table. Trustee Wellman.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I was wondering if the board would consider an amendment to item number 20 so that it would read provide on a rotational basis. So add the words on a rotational basis between provide and opportunity. So it reads provide on a rotational basis, opportunity for all trustees to act in the capacity of chair at select meetings of the board. I think, Madam Chair, there has to be an appreciation and understanding that there may not be enough special meetings or other meetings where the board, chair actually delegates that opportunity. But if it's done in a fair manner, just like we do the prayer, we rotate so that every trustee gets that opportunity. I think that would make sure that it's fair. So it's not a matter of playing favoritism or the board chair having to decide who's going to do it. It would just be done on a rotational basis, maybe just alphabetically, and to give that opportunity.
Thank you. Okay, so you're proposing an amendment. Is there anyone here who would not consider that to be a friendly amendment? Okay, we've got two who would not consider that to be friendly. So we'll have to deal with the amendment first and then go back to the main motion. So you've got the amendment, which speaks to provide on a rotational basis an opportunity for all trustees and so on. And I have some hands up. Trustee Wellman, you've brought that forward. So I'll turn to Trustee Lowe and then Trustee Rath.
Yeah, so I would speak against that amendment. It is too specific and it binds the policy. The policy should be there to allow for the anyone to chair a meeting, and I think the discretion would then be discussed by the board how they would like to do that. I would not like to see this amount of specificity put into our policy.
Thank you, Trustee Rath, and then Trustee Williams.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I think that the chair needs the flexibility to move that role around, and I just wouldn't want to tie our hands there.
Trustee Williams?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We elect a chair, and because of the responsibility that the chair has, there has to be a continuity. So the difficulty I'm having with this motion for this change is that the chair has many functions. And if it's just about chairing a meeting, then fine, as long as that's very specific. But there's other duties that are related to this. And I would have to agree with Trustee Wellman, is that it should be just done on a rotational basis if that's what needs to occur. I think it's more appropriate for the vice chair position to take over chairing of meetings internally than it is to have the chair change at our regular meetings. And as I said, given the other functions that you serve as a chair, I'm having difficulty with this amendment.
All right, Trustee D'Souza.
Thanks. It's a bit confusing. You know, we have a chair, we have a vice chair, and now we're going to be rotating. I've never seen this on any board where, I know I understand capacity building, but, you know, it just makes it just a smorgasbord of this, that, and everything. We have a vice chair who gets compensated for doing that. So are we going to be compensating everyone then now who's taking on the role of vice chair and chairing things? That's something that needs to be considered as well, because it is work. It is work in preparing for these meetings, whoever does it. So that's something that I think we need to also discuss. And then I think, in fairness to everyone, we don't know who's chair and who's not. And you know, I've seen sometimes some people may not get the opportunity. And I think it needs to be fair across the board. And I think if it's a given in policy, then everything is just fair for everybody.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any further hands up. So our first, Trustee Rath, is that a new hand? All right.
Thank you. I just wanted to understand, are we talking about the Trustee Wellman's amendment, or do we defeat that first and then we go back to the original motion?
Well, defeat or not defeat, that decision has to be made, but we're dealing
Right.
with the
But I was
amendment
just trying to
first, and then we're
where
back. Yeah, and we're back to the main motion. I've asked people to speak only to the amendment. So the amendment, again, is to provide on a rotational basis an opportunity for all trustees to act in the capacity of chair at select meetings of the board. Following the dispensation of this motion, I might suggest an amendment myself to substitute select for special. And then that is very clear which meetings we're talking about, but that's later. Right now, we're speaking to the amendment that was proposed by Trustee Wellman. So I'm not seeing Trustee Wellman.
Madam Chair, actually, I would just like to close on my proposed amendment. My understanding of even making any sort of amendment to number 20 was to ensure that there was the opportunity for capacity building and sharing responsibility. And I think that that capacity building and the sharing of responsibility should be as fair as possible. And that is why, Madam Chair, I suggested we say that it's on a rotational basis, that so hopefully through the course of a year, all 6 trustees, including the vice chair, would have the opportunity to chair special meetings as part of their growth and capacity building.
Thank you. All right, no further hands. I'm calling the question on the amendment. All those in favor? Trustee Williams?
No.
Okay, then that motion fails. We're back to the main motion, which is provide opportunities for all trustees to act in the capacity of chair at select meetings of the board. Trustee Rath, I see that your hand is up. I'll let you speak, and then I would propose that small amendment that I was speaking to earlier. Trustee Rath.
Yeah, I actually just wanted to, I didn't get a chance before the hand went up just to speak to the original amendment, but, and I think it's just, I speak in favor of this motion just because the last 2 or 3 evaluations, building capacity has been a consistent theme as an area of growth. And there's just a few months left in this term, and there are trustees at the table who haven't had that chance to chair a special meeting. I think that's important, and especially to do so in a supportive environment. As policy currently sits, only the chair or vice chair are able to run special meetings. But ultimately, a change in this policy will allow the chair more flexibility the way it's written right now. And it'll lead to better, more confident trustees and a shared responsibility for smoother meetings. So I'd ask that you support the change to policy 5.
Trustee Williams?
My apologies. I guess the problem I'm having with this one, we're dealing with the chair of the board. And it says select meetings. What it doesn't tell us is what those select meetings are. And this is why I'm having a problem with this amendment, is because what is a select meeting? Like, what does that mean? And I guess I'm looking for some clarity here.
Trustee Williams, and you'll recall that as we step back into the main motion, I would propose at this point a very small amendment to substitute select with special, to be very clear that we're only talking about special meetings.
Okay, thank you for that clarity.
All right, and that is an amendment that would need to be supported by a board motion. I have Trustee Wellman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have a lot of special meetings. We have special meetings dealing with governance. We have special meetings dealing with, meeting with some of our counterparts, such as ASBA executive, Rocky View, what have you. We also have special meetings to handle the board self-evaluation, special meetings for the chief superintendent. So I'm just wondering if we should be a little bit more specific in saying special meetings dealing with governance issues. Because typically those are the special meetings that the vice chair chairs right now, are the special meetings dealing with just, mostly governance, and not the other ones that I had just mentioned.
Okay, I would accept that as someone who's proposed an amendment as a friendly amendment. Would anyone else object to adding dealing with governance issues? So the motion would then read the motion with the amendment: provide opportunity for all trustees to act in the capacity of chair at special meetings dealing with governance issues. I have 2 hands up. Trustee, and please use the blue thing because I don't want to miss anybody. I've got Trustee Rath, Trustee Lowe. Trustee Williams, is that a new hand? Okay, Trustee Rath and then Trustee Lowe.
Yeah, I don't agree with that longer motion. I would agree that yours is friendly, just special meeting, because I want this to be flexible for the chair. Like, there's going to be some trustees that aren't going to want to take this on. So I just say special meeting is great, but it doesn't have to be specific to governance. Why pigeonhole ourselves when we're trying to teach new trustees in the role? And otherwise, your motion is friendly, special.
Right, but the amendment proposed by Trustee Wellman is not, so we have to debate the amendment.
Okay. Yeah, so no.
Okay, Trustee Lowe and Trustee D'Souza.
Yeah, I would also not support that amendment. We do not specify the difference between governance and non-governance. We used to in an older version of our policy, but we no longer do. Okay. Our meetings, special meetings, could cover a variety of topics, some of which are governance, some which are not. We do not have specific governance special meetings. So I would not support that. I would agree with Trustee Rath that special meetings would be friendly. And again, back to that, we need to allow our policy the ability for the board to make the decision. So by I would revert to the original motion with your friendly amendment, but we can vote on this one first.
Okay, Trustee D'Souza, and then I am going to call the question on the amendment to the amendment. Trustee D'Souza.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I still don't understand, and I'm just going to reiterate what I said again. Perhaps it was not communicated the way I intended to, but I still think it's important to have it as a rotational because, we don't know which chair we get. And if there's alliances and preferences, some people could get more opportunities than others. And I think it's very, very important that we have it done fairly. And I don't see why there would be opposition to fairness. So I just wanted to mention that.
Appreciate that, but that decision has been made, but I appreciate your comment. All right, I'm calling the question on the amendment to the amendment, which would be special meetings dealing with governance issues. If you support that amendment to the amendment, hands up. 1, 2, okay, opposed? 1, 2, 3.
Opposed.
You're opposed, Trustee
I'm
Williams?
opposed.
Okay, that's lost. We're back to the amendment. Providing, and again, I'll read it, provide opportunity for all trustees to act in the capacity of chair at special meetings of the board. So we're back to that amendment, and are there, I see a couple of hands up. Trustee D'Souza, is that a new hand or old hand?
Yes, I would like to add on a rotational basis.
We've dealt with that and it's been defeated, so that would be out of order.
Okay.
Trustee Ivanelli?
I will agree with at special meetings.
Thank you. Trustee Ivanelli?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If the word select is in there, I think it gives the chair flexibility, like select special meetings is what I'm saying. I would approve, I would support the friendly amendment, select special meetings, and the word select may appease the colleagues around the table who feel it's governance meetings and not governance meetings. So yes, to special.
No, we have an amendment to the amendment. Opportunity for trustees to act in the capacity of chair at select special meetings. Is there anyone here who would not see that as friendly? Speak now.
I see it as not being friendly because then we're talking about who's going to be able to say what meeting this is going to happen.
Right, so this
What
is not
we're really talking about is special meetings. We're not talking about other.
Thank you, I appreciate that. So this is not friendly, it has to be debated. Is there anyone who wants to make further comment on the use of select in front of special? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question on the amendment to the amendment, which would read, provide opportunity for all trustees to act in the capacity of chair at select special meetings. All those in favor?
Okay.
Is that a yes for you, Trustee Williams?
Yes, I'll say yes to that.
All those in favor? Okay, we've got 3 in favor. All opposed? Okay, that one's lost. Back to the amended motion. Provide opportunity for all trustees to act in the capacity of chair at special meetings. Is there any further debate on this one? Seeing none, I am going to call the question on this amended motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, that motion's carried. So that is our new wording. That was a bit of a workout. Trustee Rath, back to you for the second reading.
Perfect, thank you. And actually a good learning experience too, so thank you. I move that the Board of Trustees, by quorum of the trustees present, approves the second and final reading shall immediately follow the first reading.
All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Hearing none. Third reading.
Thank you. That the Board of Trustees amends Policy 6, role of the Vice Chair as.
5.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
That's okay.
Is that the right? Okay, it's Policy
5.
5, sorry. That the Board of Trustees amends Policy 5, role of the Board Chair as follows. Amend bullet point 20 to now read as, provide opportunity for all trustees to act in the capacity of chair at select.
Nope.
Oh, sorry, at special meetings of the board.
Thank you. Can you read that one more time for clarity?
Sorry. That the Board of Trustees amends Policy 5, role of the board chair as follows. Amend bullet point 20 to now read as, provide opportunity for all trustees to act in the capacity of chair at special meetings of the board.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. That motion's carried. And that'll get us to item 7.5, which is Policy 6 considerations. Trustee Williams.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would ask that the Board of Trustees amends Policy 6, role of the Vice Chair as follows. Delete bullet point 6, which reads, "The Vice Chair shall serve as chair of special meetings called for the purpose of dealing with governance issues and other meetings as directed by the chair."
All right. The motion's on the floor. Any comments, questions of clarification?
Madam Chair, I would just add to this, speaking to this motion, is that given what we just passed, this makes perfect sense. That this be deleted, given what we have just passed.
Thank you. All right, I see no hands, so I'm calling the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That motion's carried. Second motion, Trustee Williams.
That the Board of Trustees, by a quorum of the trustees present, approves that the second and final reading shall immediately follow the first reading.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
And finally,
That, oops, I gotta flip back here now. That the Board of Trustees amends Policy 6, role of the Vice Chair as follows. Delete bullet point 6, which reads, "The Vice Chair shall serve as chair of special meetings called for purpose with governance issues and other meetings as directed by the chair."
all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, perfect. That motion's carried. That'll get us to item 7.6, policy review, first, second, and final reading. Trustee D'Souza.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move that the Board of Trustees amends Policy 8, Board Committees as follows. Under the section entitled Membership, amend the second and third bullet points under Section 1 to read, "A minimum of 2 and up to 3 volunteer individuals external to the district approved by the Audit Committee and staff resource as determined by the Chief Superintendent, currently the Secretary Treasurer. Of the volunteer external members, at least one member must belong to the business community and at least one member must belong to the adult learning community." Amend the second paragraph of bullet point 2 to now read as, "The volunteer external committee members will be appointed to the committee based on their expertise in financial reporting, accounting, and risk. Volunteer external committee members will be recruited by the district through an external recruitment effort. The terms of appointment shall be for 2 years, renewable for additional periods of 2 years at a time, at the discretion of the board. To ensure continuity when there is more than one, the appointments of the volunteer external committee members will preferably overlap. Insert the following as the final sentence under bullet point 2. The chair of the audit committee shall participate in the process of recruitment and selection of volunteer external committee members."
Thank you. All right, with that motion on the floor, I will open it up to questions from trustees or comments. Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Second motion, Trustee D'Souza.
Madam Chair, you didn't see my hand up.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that's
No,
okay.
but I didn't see a blue hand. Did you put a blue?
No, I'm sorry. I just want to add that I'd like to thank the committee for because we discussed this at our last meeting when I brought this forward to change our terms of reference to extend the term for potential volunteers. But what this has also precipitated is that we would have to bring an additional motion forward, Madam Chair, to follow up on this change. And so I would like to, I don't know at what time, read the next motion so that we can act on this one. So I don't know how you would like me to proceed.
I'm not clear what you're asking for, to be honest, Trustee D'Souza. Trustee Wellman, you
Yes.
wanted to comment.
Yeah, well, thank you, Madam Chair. I don't think any other motion would be appropriate until we've done first, second, and final reading.
All right.
And
Okay,
Okay, and Madam Chair, in all fairness, we have a process that we have in place and have already given direction to administration. So I would just remind Trustee D'Souza of that.
Second
Thank
motion,
you.
Trustee D'Souza.
okay. So I'd like to move that the Board of Trustees, by quorum of the trustees, present approves that the second and final reading shall immediately follow the first reading. That the Board of Trustees
Nope.
amends policy.
Trustee D'Souza, sorry. We have to vote on that.
Oh, sorry.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and now the final motion.
Thanks. I move that the Board of Trustees amends policy 8, that the Board of Trustees by quorum of the trustee present approves that the second and final reading shall immediately follow the first reading. That the Board of Trustees amends policy 8 board committees as follows. Under the section entitled Membership, amend the second and third bullet points under section 1 to read a minimum of 2 and up to 3 volunteer individuals external to the district approved by the Audit Committee and staff resource as determined by the Chief Superintendent, currently the Secretary Treasurer. Of the volunteer external members, at least one member must belong to the business community and at least one member must belong to the adult learning community. Amend the first paragraph of bullet 2 to now read as the volunteer external committee members will be appointed to the committee based on their expertise in financial reporting, accounting, and risk. Volunteer external committee members will be recruited by the district through an external recruitment effort. The terms of appointment shall be for 2 years, renewable for additional periods of 2 years at a time, at the discretion of the board to ensure continuity when there is more than one. The appointments of the volunteer external committee members will preferably overlap. Insert the following as the final sentence under bullet point 2. The chair of the audit committee shall participate in the process of recruitment and selection of volunteer external committee members.
Thank you. You've heard the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. That motion is carried. That brings us to item 8. And again, before we move on, thank you for the consideration of that last motion, and again through admin for the assistance in putting that motion together, and will be helpful in the long term for the board. Very much appreciated. Item 8, information items only. And we have 8.1 COVID update from our chief.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With the provincial reset and students working online and returning back to school yesterday, our numbers of COVID are starting off really low. And so as of today, we have 1 staff member infected and we have 38 students infected. So that that 1 staff member and students have impacted 4 that are now in isolation, as well as we have 39 students who are in isolation. 19 schools are impacted at this point in time, but we predict that these numbers will increase as time goes on. I know even during the course of this meeting, my phone has rung a few times from Alberta Health Services, and so we'll deal with that as we go forward. 2 other things I'd like to bring to the board's attention. Number 1 is rapid testing continues in our school. And the big thing with rapid testing is that you need parental consent before the test is done. It's not an actual COVID test, it's testing for the antigen. Anyone who tests positive for the antigen is then encouraged to have more rigorous COVID tests. And the second thing is we did hear from the Premier when he announced about a week or so ago that they were looking at vaccination in schools. Calgary Catholic, we have not heard any more about that at all. One thing I can say is that if we look back over time, Calgary Catholic has worked closely with Alberta Health Services to have vaccinations in schools, but it's always with the parental consent. And if that was to happen with COVID-19, we would also be making sure that it is with parental consent. And so that, of course, is anyone under the age of 18. Anyone over the age of 18, such as some of the individuals in our high schools, they are considered adults and they can make their own choices. So those are some updates related to COVID-19. And if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Questions? For trustees? Seeing none, thank you for the information. That'll get us to 8.2, Chief Superintendent Designate 2021-2022.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the memo, you will see that there is a QI 7.7 that ensures that we have high quality management services to the board, and that's available. And so you will see these individuals, these 5 superintendents, have been rotated throughout this calendar year. And then in the summer months, I will be available to deal with things as required. So that is just information for the board.
Questions? Trustee Ivanelli.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I just have a question around the summer months. I thought there was a rotational schedule as well during the summer. So does this indicate that Dr. Zumos will not be taking summer vacation and, and working a 12-month year?
So we're re-looking at all of our systems, and we know that in the past, it's really difficult for superintendents and those in education to get their holidays. And I want to make sure that my team members have an opportunity to rejuvenate, to get a summer vacation, because if they don't take holidays, then holidays start to accumulate over time. It's a repeating pattern, and it's one that, yes, I'm looking at taking some holidays. I'm hoping to take some days off here and there and working with Chair Martin, but it's also been very difficult in a world of COVID-19 because there's unprecedented stuff that's coming our way. Like, we've tried to schedule holidays and they haven't happened because the government dropped something upon us for consideration and consultation. So it has been really challenging, but we're hopeful that we can all, everyone needs a break, everyone needs a rest, and thank goodness that summer is right around the corner. So we'll work it through and we'll continually reevaluate, and I can assure you that I will get some weekends in to have a break as well. Yeah.
All right.
Hey, sorry, Madam Chair, just as a follow-up, I appreciate the commentary. However, it is, like Dr. Zuma said, very important for numerous reasons to rotate that schedule so that you too have adequate rest time. It has been a very challenging year, and we need our senior admin team to be ready at the willing, even next year when hopefully this mess is behind us.
Thank you for your commentary. Trustee Williams?
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, and I do appreciate, because we have dealt with designate superintendents forever, as far as I've been here. I'm just wondering, so when are the trustees going to set up their chart?
That's a great question. When are the trustees setting up their chart? You know, the chart we're talking about.
Yeah, you know, and I'm sorry, I need to bring some levity to this, but you know, there's a factor that comes into play here. And that as trustees, we surely appreciate, I know I do, having our superintendents on call. And I think as trustees too, we need to respect what's been put before us, and the fact that within the system that you have created. And I do thank you for that, Brian, because as said, it's always wonderful knowing that we've always got the support as a board. So I thank you for this.
Yep. And again, thank you as well for filling those QIs. Very much appreciated. And of course, recognizing that the delegation of the chief designate does fall to you. Appreciate very much having this information. I see no further questions, so that'll allow us to move on to 8.3, district vision update to the chief.
And Madam Chair, just before we leave that last topic, I also want to say a huge thank you to the superintendents whose names are on that list. I think we have a hybrid model as well, that when someone calls in and if I'm unable to respond to the concern or the call or whatever it is that we have an amazing team of superintendents here, and my admin assistant, Joyce Allen, is amazing, and she will farm out different concerns to a superintendent who most fits what the concern is about. So if it has something to do with the construction of a school, then obviously she's going to share the concern with Superintendent Brad McDonald, so that he can deal with it. So I just want to, before we end this topic, say a huge thank you to the team of people that I work with, because they are a gifted group for sure. Moving right along to the district vision update, I just wanted to share with people that I had a chance to talk to our lead, our project lead, which is Mr. Don Cope. Mr. Cope is now at home recovering. He's on the path of recovery. He's still not quite functional to bring us our vision quite yet, but he is really eager to complete this work. And so with the blessings of the board, we are hoping that you will approve extending the original deadline was to come back with a renewed vision for the board's consideration here this month of May. But obviously that's not happening because of Mr. Cope's health. But we're hopeful that the new date is September 22nd, 2021 will work for everyone. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the conversation over the previous meeting and recognizing that.
Madam Chair, your voice is muffled.
Sorry.
We're having a hard time hearing you.
I'm sorry.
That's
You know,
better.
it's interesting because this is still on Max, the supplemental speaker. Recognizing that we need to review all of our policies, policy 1 being our foundational statements in our term. September gives us plenty of time to still meet that mandate. And I know that there was a consensus earlier on this working out well. Trustee Wellman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just looking at the recommendation for the administration, I think the whole board would actually be in agreement to extending this deadline. I don't know if the superintendent is looking for a motion, but I think the board really does support this. Mr. Cope had started off on doing the work, and we were really appreciating his leadership in this and his experience and his knowledge of the district and his ability to pull in all of the feedback and to share it in a very concise way to the board. So I would certainly support that, Madam Chair. And is the superintendent, Madam Chair, looking for a motion from the board to approve this, or just a general discussion and support?
To the chief, do you require a motion?
I'm fine either way. I don't think we need a motion as long as it's documented that most people are happy with it.
Sure. I'll take this opportunity then to ask trustees if anyone here has a concern with this timeline. This will be your opportunity to speak. Seeing none, then that timeline will work well. And if you could, on behalf of the board, extend our deepest appreciation and best wishes to Mr. Cope. His work and his expertise are certainly appreciated, and his making this a priority with what the challenges that he's negotiating right now means the world. So we look forward to working with him in September. That'll get us to 8.4, student voices, to the chief.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the Board of Trustees may remember the Student Advisory Council, sometime referred to as the SAC group. So we're moving away from that, and the new name is called Student Voices. Huge thank you goes out to Holly Sheely, who is our liaison of arts and culture. This group falls under her portfolio. Dealing with COVID-19 at the beginning of the school year, as well as racial justice. We never got around to our very first meeting with this group with the students until February. But since then, it's more regular and it's taking off, and we've settled now into a system. And one of the things that Ms. Sheely did was she had conversations with the group, and in fact, they did a Google survey where she was asking them like their priorities of topics of things they wanted to talk about. And the 3 things that resonated with the students were racial justice, wellness, and online learning. And so they've had different opportunities to talk about those things, with online learning being the next topic that they're going to tackle at their next meeting, hopefully here in June. So I think, things are well on the way. We know that in the past, in a world without COVID-19, we had the students come to a board meeting and, they would talk about their experience and what they're doing. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen this year, but we look forward to getting back to normal so we can have some of our gifted, talented high school students that are part of the Student Voice group come forward and share some of their amazing experiences with the board. I want to thank again Holly Sheely for her work on this, and I'll pause for any questions or comments that the board may have.
Certainly. Trustees, any questions or comments on this? Seeing none. Oh, seeing one. Trustee Williams.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, I think it would be fair to say that yes, COVID has changed our lives in many ways, and that we're not going to get back to it. We're not going to get back to what we think normal is as we go forward. So I guess my question is that when you're dealing with what we used to call SAC, is there not more ways virtually that you can be in touch with these students so that we can find out from them exactly where the focus needs to be? So I'm seeing what you've done thus far, but I'm just wondering, is there any other regular communication where you've set it up between the group that's there and the schools that they have so that these students can interact with each other virtually?
Yeah, these students, they've actually are brilliant in networking with each other. They do have an Instagram account and they have an Instagram handle that Tanya Van Brunt's communication team has helped facilitate with them. So they are corresponding with each other. And I know as we transition back to a world before COVID-19, I like to think everything is a pendulum. So where we lived with always coming together face to face in person, on one side of the pendulum, and then on the other side, always doing things online. I'm hopeful that we can take our learnings from COVID-19 and land somewhere in the middle where we can have a blend of some of the student face-to-face experiences or students' virtual experiences. And I can let the board know too that at the June 16th regular board meeting, Superintendent McDonald is working on a memo to celebrate and recognize some of our Schulich award winners who won the $80,000 scholarships, where it's our hope to invite them to the regular board meeting. So they will be part of our meeting virtually so that we can recognize and celebrate all of them. So there's a balance. I'm just using that as an example of, we don't want to stop doing anything. We do want to have, and we want to have some new things too. And we see that as a new thing that we'll be bringing forward to you at the June 16th meeting. But point well taken, Trustee Williams.
I thank you for all the work that Holly's doing with this group. And I said, it's important that we have that touch tone. So I do appreciate all the work that you and your administrative team are doing. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Trustee D'Souza?
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Madam. No, my comment was along the same lines as Trustee Williams. I would have really liked to have that interaction, even because due to COVID with the student voices. I know it was in May, and I learn a lot from what they say. And so I was looking forward to that, but I hope that maybe, I don't know if we can do it in September, October, since we didn't have it this year, because I feel that their voices are very important.
Well, we have our, Chair Martin, we have our next meeting coming up here in June. And so I've made a little note here. I'll talk to Ms. Sheely and work closely with Teresa to send an invitation. Anyone who wants to join and be part of that experience, feel free to join.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I have no further hands up. So again, on behalf of the board, thanks to Director Sheely Nielsen for her work. It looks like there's a little bit of reimagining going on with this, and I'm really impressed with the depth of the and the relevance of the topics. I'm sure those are very rich conversations, and we look forward to a return to normalcy when we can see them face to face again. I believe that gets us to the end of our public meeting. I know we have a wee bit of business to tie up.
One more. There's one more, 8.5, student transportation.
8.5, got ahead of myself again. Thank you. Sorry, I could see Brad coming on and thinking that's really interesting. So sorry. Let's move on to 8.5, student transportation task force. You've got your memo to the chief.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Martin. And so thank you to Superintendent Brad McDonald, who leads our students support services team. And with that, we have Manager Jody McKinnon, who works for Calgary Catholic, but also represents us and sits on the Student Transportation Provincial Task Force. And so it's been awesome to have someone at that level to be part of the learning provincially. And so the task force has recently launched their final kind of report and what they plan on doing next. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent McDonald to fill the board in.
Thank you, Dr. Zumas, and through you to the chair. So the report was released to the minister back in November of 2020, and the minister has deemed that is now available publicly. So it has been placed online, and I provided the link if trustees are interested in reading the full 28-page report. It is available there. I've tried to distill all of the recommendations from the report into a few salient points just for quick digestion, but the full comprehensive report is available there as well. It is difficult to determine what the province, if anything, will do with all of the recommendations, but so far they are moving forward with a couple of them. They're starting an audit committee where we're going to have auditors from different jurisdictions come in and evaluate the transportation service we provide. They're trying to find and determine what best practices look like so they can share those with other districts. They know that there's a discrepancy in how districts are providing services, so they're trying to find the best and share that with all districts to try and get everybody on a common level. They are looking at some public provincial purchasing opportunities, so contracts for purchasing of buses. So some of our rural districts and around the province actually have their own bus fleets and hire their own drivers internally to provide service. And so they're looking at kind of collapsing all of those together into one contract so they can purchase and have some buying power opportunities there. And then one thing they're always looking at is the sustainability and funding to make sure that the funding is consistent, predictable, and meets the demand for transportation based on the criteria that they set. So there are a number of other recommendations, and they have been outlined there. And with that, I'll turn it back to Dr. Zumas for any questions.
Thank you, Brad.
Questions from trustees? Trustee Wellman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know that we're very blessed to have Jody McKinnon sit on this committee. And I'm just wondering if, and perhaps this is a question you can't answer, but how transparent and has this committee been, and has there been genuine consultation and genuine consideration of all feedback that's been given by boards across the province, respecting the diversity that we're obviously dealing with between metro, rural, and urban?
I'll let Brad respond to this one.
Thank you, Chief Superintendent Zoom. Listen through to the chair. We believe that actually collaboration has been very genuine. Looking at the recommendations they provided, they do synergize well, specifically with even Calgary Catholic opinions, but opinions we've heard very loudly throughout the province from jurisdictions. So there's a bit of a lens of it from the provincial mandate or provincial side of things, but we're definitely seeing jurisdiction concerns coming through, from school safety issues with the mandated MET training, through concerns with funding. So we are seeing a lot of jurisdictional issues coming to the top and in the report. So we believe all the consultation was genuine, and that our issues are coming forward.
Well, that's good to hear. Thank you for that.
Quick question, if you more credit hands. In looking at these recommendations or these findings, these initiatives that they will undertake, and there's quite a lot given the time frame left for this government. Are there any that you think might be enacted first? Where do you see their priorities? What is it most likely we're going to be dealing with?
Go ahead, Brad.
Thank you, and through you to the chair. It's difficult to determine which priorities Minister LaGrange will target. This is definitely a recommendation, and all of them are warranted and important, but it's difficult to determine which ones the government will prioritize. If there's opportunity to write her and determine that might be a route, but no, it's certainly difficult to determine which way the province will go.
Yeah. Oh no. I mean, there's actually a lot of concrete, really tangible recommendations here, which on one hand is terrific, but the implications and the short runway of this government make me wonder if how many of these, if not all of them, are going to be coming our way, and what the implications administratively might be. But I guess it's speculative. Are there any further questions from trustees on this? Seeing none, then we'll accept this report, and this is the last report, as information, and again through the chief, thank you for that. That will bring us to the end of our public piece. We have a little bit of work to finish up, so I propose that we will take a 10-minute break, and if I could have a motion, and I'll thank any of our guests who have been with us today for your time and your interest. And with that, I'll ask for a motion to move in private.
Madam Chair, I move that the Board of Trustees moves to meet in private.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. One motion. Got a motion?
Yeah, Omar has the motion, Madam Chair.
Okay, that the Board of Trustees direct the Chief Superintendent to offer school councils district-paid ASCA membership. Okay, to offer interested school councils, perhaps, or at the school council's request.
Well, you don't know if they're, Madam Chair, you wouldn't know if they're interested until you actually offer, right? So this is about directs the chief superintendent to offer school councils a district-paid ASCA membership for the 2021 school year and to take all the necessary actions to implement the change. You won't know they're interested until you ask them.
All right, are people good with the wording? Okay, are there any comments on this? All right, I'm not seeing any. I can't see hands with the motion, but nobody's speaking up. So I'm going to assume that there's no further conversation on this, and I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Oh, Madam Chair, somebody needs to move it.
Oh, I thought you, I'm sorry. My bad. End of a long day. Would someone care to move this?
I'll move it. Madam Chair, I'll move that the Board of Trustees directs the chief superintendent to offer school councils a district-paid ASCA membership effective for the 2021-2022 school year and to take all the necessary actions to implement this change.
Thank you. All right, any further questions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, that motion is carried. And that concludes our business of the day. If I could turn to Trustee Ivanelli to close us in prayer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If we could all center ourselves in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. There is so much going on in the world, so much that is upsetting and beyond our control. Please help us to cast our cares on you. Help us to turn our worry time into prayer time. Please help all who are dealing with tragedies, illness, adversity, and losses. Please put your angels about those who are in harm's way. Please pour out your blessings on all who are in need and help us all to find your peace that passes understanding. Thank you for being with us each moment of this day. In Jesus' name we pray. And if we could all share in a Hail Mary for the month of Mary. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Thanks, everyone. We got a lot of work done. A long haul, but good job. All right,
Great.
take care. I
Thank
guess
you.
we'll see you bright and early.
Yeah, bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Good morning.
Have a good night. Bye.
Bye.
Just to clarify, the meeting tomorrow is all virtual, so is the one on Monday, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Thank you very much.
Yeah, bye.